Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Srini here, and today we're going to start with a completely new series that is going to be to freshen up your conceptual concepts in particular language like programming language like Java. Now, nowadays it has become very important because what I've seen is that the candidates who are appearing for the interview, either they are mugging up the interview questions which has been frequently asked by certain companies, or they are clueless about the programming aspect. So I really felt the need that it's very important that the fundamentals of the Java programming language should be very clear when you are going to appear for the automation interview. So today's video as well as this series is going to cover up on all the conceptual questions on Java. And after this series is about to be over, I'll also cover practical coding questions and from which websites and how you can plan to practice them. That is starting from easy to medium and then to complex questions. So we will jump onto that later on. But for now, the focus is all onto the conceptual part. How can you fare the interview with respect to Java, feel confident, and prepare in that manner that you can clear it very confidently? Because Java is such an important aspect that without this, the interviewer would not go on to the next area. It could be Selenium, it could be Rest Assured, it could be any other area which you might be also expecting some interview questions. But if your Java isn't up to the mark, the interviewer would not go on to the next topic. That is the fact. So let's start with this new series. I'm going to share one Word document. So these just have some questions. I'm going to explain it conceptually in this particular video. And likewise, as and when we go deep into Java, we will also cover the coding part. Now, first important thing is that, of course, they will ask you about yourself and they will ask you to explain your technical skill sets in the interview. Then they will jump on to the next question. Can you explain OOPS? Okay. So we'll start off our video with this particular topic, explain OOPS concepts. Now, this could be like, you might be thinking like, why am I starting with so basic that you might be at least knowing about it. That is true, but there are certain things which could be like you may not be aware. It could be like, which interviewer may catch you on that small topic. So I don't want to leave any stone unturned. So let's start off with that. So OOPS stands for Object Oriented Principles. Okay. Now in OOPS there are a lot of things which comes with it. Okay. Let's just start from the very basic things. So we have object, we have class. These are very small elementary concepts, but they need to be completely. You should be sure about that. Then we have something called inheritance. So we'll cover all of these concepts in detail. That is why this video I'm preparing. Then we have abstraction. Then we have encapsulation. Then we have, yeah, so we'll cover all those things here. So encapsulation, abstraction. Yeah, these are the main areas which you need to know. Now I'll cover up one more thing here. Now under abstraction, you will have something called interfaces. Interface versus abstract methods. So you need to know. And we have one more principle called method overriding and method overloading. And method overloading. So if you know these concepts, that is really more than enough. So I'll cover all of them in detail. Okay. So let's start off with the very most elementary concept. What is an object? Now think of it in a real-time perspective. And of course, we'll have to explain to programmer, I mean to the interviewer from a realistic fashion as well. But just to make sure your concept is clear, consider any object like a table, a chair, a person walking, right? These are the objects which we are talking about. Now, all the objects, if you together collect and you can put into one category, then you can classify it. So what I mean is that example chair, table, then all those things are like furniture aspects, right? So we can put into a class called furniture or like household items furniture, like that, right? So a class is a collection of objects, and generally speaking, class would be having those objects which are mostly related to each other. It would be having some similarity. Those kind of objects will be putting together into one kind of category called that particular class. Okay. This is the definition of object and class. So if let's say I have a class A, let's say a class student. Okay. I have a class student. This is how we represent a class. We will have a small case CLASS. This is a keyword in Java. This is the class name. Now here you will be having certain, I would say here that we have some variables. Let's just say we have some variables. We have some methods. We have some variables and we have some methods. And we have some static variables and we have some static methods. So that's what I'm saying. There are a lot of conceptual things which we may or may not be aware. So I want to cover all of that in detail. So I'm just taking this example now. Now these are called instance variables, and these are called instance methods. These are very important things to understand, and these are called also class variables, and these are also called class methods. Now, some of you all might be already aware of this, so that's really good thing if you are aware of it. Now, let's say we want to create an object. So the way we create object is like student stud equal to new student. This is how we create object. Now, if we want to invoke the method, so we can basically have a method here called method one. So we can say stud dot method one. This is how we invoke a method inside a class. But this is an instance method. Now, what about if I want to invoke the static method? Let's say I have a method called method two, which is a static method. So I can directly call it like student dot method two. This is the way how we have to invoke a method, I mean a static method, or we can also write it like this way directly. So implicitly the class will be invoking the method. Even if you don't write class name dot method two, also it's fine. So this is the conceptual thing which I was talking about. So this is the object and class example. Right? This is the concept of object and class. Okay. Now we will move on to the next topic that is on a high level. We will talk about what is inheritance. So inheritance is something like, let's say we have a class student and we have something like some information which the student requires. Okay, let's say class info. Just assume for the time being. So if the student is inheriting info, then we call it as an inheritance. So here this becomes your parent class and this becomes your subclass, right? Because sorry, I mean to say this is your subclass because this is dependent on the this information, right? So this becomes your parent class. This is the concept of inheritance. So we look at into detail of all these concepts into our future videos, but this is just like a icebreaker or the introduction session for all of these concepts. Then we have something called abstraction. Now, abstraction word means that it's like hiding the internal implementation details. Internal implementation details from the outside world. So there are two variants of that in Java. We have something called interface and we have something called abstract method. So interface is like you can say 100% abstraction before Java 1.8. I'll talk about that, what we mean by before Java 1.8 features were introduced. It was because in the time before Java 1.8 was introduced, all the interfaces which were there, right, whatever interface we used to create, if you try to create any variable, any method, it will be completely 100% abstract method. So how do we declare an interface? We can say interface inter one. Okay, if I say example M1, so make it small case M1. So this becomes actually like public abstract void M1. Actually, this is the how the internally the method is stored. So this is how the data is internally stored. And if you create any variable, let's say for example, I'm saying string equal to name. This as an example. This is actually stored like public string final name equal to name. So this is how it's getting internally stored. So you can't change the value of this name variable, and this actually method is an abstract method. So this is the concept of an interface. Okay. Now abstract method is a bit different. Abstract method is like public abstract void empty. Okay. Now this means that this particular method is abstract. So if any class is having any abstract method inside it, like class 3, if any class is having this abstract method inside it, then it means that this class also will become an abstract class. So we have so many concepts actually here, so we will look into that in detail in our videos. So this is how small concepts which are there can actually lead into some complications during the interview. So we'll stop over here till abstract methods, and we will continue the other concepts, and we'll look into the details of these concepts in our next video. Thank you so much.